What if I told you that the Vatican keeps a secret so dark that if it came to light, it could shake the faith of millions of people? Forbidden documents, hidden books, and texts that have been erased from history. Why? What don't they want you to find out? From the earliest days of the Church, secrets were under lock and key. The Vatican's secret library houses thousands of manuscripts that have never been shown to the public. Ancient texts, written centuries ago, hide revelations that could change everything we know about religion, history, and even the future of humanity. But who decides what can be revealed and what should be buried in oblivion? Have you ever heard of the lost Gospel of Judas? Or from Book of Enoch, which talks about fallen angels and spiritual secrets that the Church tried to erase? Some of these documents were considered too dangerous for the public to read. But what do they contain that could be so threatening? Many believe that within these sacred walls, there are hidden evidence about the true story of Jesus. What if everything we know about Christianity had been carefully edited? If there were hidden reports that contradict the official narrative? Theories claim that the Church keeps information about unrevealed prophecies, mystical apparitions, and even contacts with beings from another world. But what really lies behind these closed doors? Why were researchers who attempted to access these files blocked? Was it just an effort to protect the faith, or to hide something that could undo centuries of control? Now stop and think. If there was a document that revealed the absolute truth about the Vatican, would you have the courage to read it? What comes next may be even more disturbing than you imagine. If this information is real, if there are hidden documents that could change the way we view faith, then what does this mean for us? What else could be being hidden? The Vatican's silence on these secrets only increases doubts. But there is something that no one can hide: the strength of our faith. While many try to keep mysteries under lock and key, we continue in search of truth, in search of light in the midst of darkness. And that's why I want to extend a special invitation to you. If you believe in the power of prayer, write Amen in the comments and leave your prayer request. Let's form a chain of faith, regardless of what's behind these closed doors, because the truth always finds a way to surface. If this message resonated with you, leave your like, as this helps this content reach more people who need to know about it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next revelations, and activate the bell to be notified when we bring more information about the mysteries that the Vatican doesn't want you to discover. Believe, what comes next may be even more shocking. The Vatican has always been a place of mystery. Its ancient walls hold not only centuries of history, but also secrets that were never revealed to the world. Within its secret archives, there are documents that few have had access to, forbidden texts that could completely change our understanding of faith, history, and even the very purpose of the Church. What is it about these manuscripts that is so dangerous? Why does the Vatican insist on keeping them locked up? The Vatican's secret library houses more than 85 kilometers of shelves, filled with rare writings, papal correspondence, political treatises, and, rumor has it, books that were removed from the Bible, apocryphal Gospels, and even documents that talk about unexplained phenomena. Much of this information was never made public because it could challenge deeply held beliefs. What if some of these discoveries proved that the story was told differently than what actually happened? There are reports of researchers and historians who tried to access these archives and were blocked. To enter this labyrinth of ancient documents, special authorization from the Pope is required, and just a few people in the world are allowed to view certain texts. What exactly are they protecting, and why is the Church so afraid of this information being released? Among the prohibited texts, one of the most controversial is Gospel of Judas, which presents a completely different version of Christ's betrayal. According to this document, Judas would not be a traitor, but rather the most faithful disciple, chosen by Jesus to fulfill a divine purpose. This version of history could completely change the view of Christianity. If this is true, what else might have changed over the centuries? Another intriguing text is the Book of Enoch, an ancient manuscript that describes the existence of the Watchers, fallen angels who came to earth and passed on forbidden knowledge to humanity. This book was removed from the Bible, but is cited in other sacred texts. Why did the Church decide that it should not be part of the scriptures we know today? Does it contain information that challenges the official Vatican narrative? There are also rumors about documents that speak of hidden prophecies, predictions about the end of times, and even reports of contacts with beings from other dimensions. Some theories claim that the Vatican has detailed records about mystical apparitions, supernatural events, and phenomena that have never been explained. What could this information reveal? Many believe that one of the Vatican's best-kept secrets is its relationship with the supernatural. There are documented accounts of exorcisms, prophetic messages from saints, and even supposed documents that mention the existence of a truth much greater than we imagine. If these records really exist, why are they not revealed to the public? What is the Vatican trying to protect? Imagine for a moment that all these secrets were finally revealed. How would the world react? How would people's faith be impacted? What if we discovered that has church history been carefully edited over the centuries to keep certain knowledge hidden? Many believe that revealing these secrets could completely destabilize the power of the church, forcing a reinterpretation of the beliefs that have sustained society for millennia. If there's anything history teaches us, it's that the truth always finds a way to emerge. No matter how much they try to hide certain documents, there are always signs, traces, fragments of information that escape control. And today, with access to information easier than ever, more and more people are questioning what was taught and seeking answers beyond what we were allowed to know. The question that remains is, are we prepared for the truth? If the Vatican's secret archives were opened today, would the world be able to deal with what's hidden inside? Do these forbidden texts contain answers to humanity's biggest questions? And you, what do you think the Vatican is hiding? If you believe the truth should be revealed, comment below. The truth needs to be told. Let's strengthen this investigation together, share knowledge, and continue exploring the mysteries that lie beyond what we have been allowed to know. And remember, the truth is out there, waiting to be discovered. What comes next could change everything you believe. Throughout history, several researchers and historians have tried to gain access to the Vatican's secret archives. There are miles and miles of documents kept under absolute secrecy, containing information that few have had the privilege or the courage to examine. Some of these scholars claim that by getting too close to the truth, they have been stopped in their tracks. There have been cases of academics who, after announcing new discoveries about banned manuscripts, had their research discredited, their work censored, and in some cases, simply disappeared from the academic scene without convincing explanations. Why so many barriers to something that, in theory, should just preserve history? What is in these documents that cannot be shared with the public? Many of the prohibited texts are part of what we call apocryphal books, writings that were removed from the official Bible and declared heretical by the Church. But the burning question is, why were these texts eliminated? If they were just irrelevant, why the need to ban them completely? Some of these manuscripts present a strikingly different version of the events that shaped Christianity. The Gospel of Thomas, for example, brings teachings attributed to Jesus that do not correspond to the narratives accepted by the Church. This text suggests that the kingdom of God is not in a distant place, but within each of us, an idea that challenges the traditional concept of a religious institution as an intermediary of faith. Another controversial example is the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, a document that suggests that Mary Magdalene was not just a follower of Jesus, but one of his closest disciples and, possibly, someone with a much more important role than we have been taught. This gospel was completely rejected by the Church, perhaps because it would call into question the patriarchal structure of Christianity. What if Mary Magdalene had a leadership position among the apostles? What if its history had been deliberately erased to reinforce a male-dominated model of the Church? These texts are not just insignificant variations of the scriptures we know. They present a Christianity that could have followed a totally different path, where certain dogmas would never have been established, and where access to spirituality would not be limited to religious hierarchies. And this brings us to an even more intriguing point. If there are so many documents that have been deleted, how many others could be completely hidden within the Vatican archives? Some documents leaked over the years suggest that the Church holds knowledge that could profoundly alter our view of faith and humanity itself. One of the most famous examples is the Third Secret of Fatima, a revelation supposedly made by the Virgin Mary to 3 children in Portugal in 1917. For years, it was speculated that the Vatican never revealed the prophecy in full, as its contents would be devastating to the Church. What could be so dangerous that it should be kept completely confidential? Some believe that it is about a major apocalyptic event, or even a global conspiracy involving the very structure of the Church. Another intriguing leak involves documents that supposedly indicate that the Vatican knows more about the existence of extraterrestrial life than it publicly admits. There are reports of correspondence between church leaders and scientists studying unexplained phenomena, as well as records of encounters with unidentified objects. If this information were confirmed, how would it impact the Christian faith? Is the Vatican hiding evidence that we are not alone in the universe? And if so, why? And we cannot forget the ancient texts that mention the creation of humanity in a completely different way than that told in Genesis. The Qumran manuscript, found in the caves of the Dead Sea, contains excerpts that suggest alternative interpretations for the origin of man, describing beings who descended from the heavens to teach knowledge to humanity. These writings connect directly to the Book of Enoch, which was removed from the Bible, and describes fallen angels who are said to have shared forbidden secrets with humans. If this story were true, it would mean that humanity had contact with higher entities in the past, a detail that would completely change our understanding of faith and history. If all these discoveries were openly discussed, what would happen? How would people react to learning that entire parts of the Church's history had been hidden, altered, or reinterpreted over the centuries? The Vatican continues to be one of the most influential institutions in the world, and perhaps the disclosure of these secrets would put that power at risk. But the truth, no matter how much they try to hide it, always finds a way to surface. The question is, are we ready to face this truth? Do you think these secrets should be revealed to the world? Comment below. The truth needs to come out. If you believe that these hidden documents should be accessible to everyone, let's together continue investigating, questioning, and seeking answers that have been hidden from us for so long. What if everything you believe has been changed over the centuries? What if what we were taught about the Christian faith was just a part of the story, carefully selected to support a convenient narrative? What would happen if we discovered that sacred texts had been removed, rewritten, or distorted to shape a controlled view of spirituality? The Vatican, for centuries, kept secrets locked away in its archives, documents that could completely change the way we understand religion and the very essence of humanity. But why? What is the real reason behind this concealment? Imagine that there are forbidden texts that present an alternative version of biblical events, books that describe passages completely different from what we read in the Bible today. Some of these scriptures talk about a Jesus who taught mystical secrets reserved only for a few disciples. Others suggest that the creation of man did not happen in the way we know it, and that superior beings intervened in our evolution. And there are also those who reveal prophecies that have not yet been fulfilled, hidden messages about the end of times that the Church preferred to keep hidden. If these documents were released, would the faith of millions of people remain intact? It's not just about history. This is how the Christian faith has been shaped over the centuries. Who determined which books would be considered sacred and which should be erased from humanity's memory? What led the Vatican to hide certain texts, while others were elevated as the definitive Word of God? If the truth is contained in these forbidden manuscripts, why are they not accessible to everyone? What is hidden may be the missing piece to understand the true history of humanity. The very formation of the Bible as we know it today is a mystery. At the Council of Nicaea in the 4th century, religious leaders decided which Gospels would be part of the New Testament and which would be considered heretical. But what few know is that there were dozens of other texts vying for a place among the sacred scriptures. The Gospel of Philip, for example, brings a completely different view of Jesus' relationship with Mary Magdalene. The Gospel of Thomas presents teachings closer to a spiritual philosophy than to the doctrine of the Church. The Apocalypse of Peter describes an afterlife scenario completely different from what we know today. If these stories had been included in the Bible, the Christian faith would have followed an entirely different path. Now think about this. If there are so many documents that have simply been erased from history, How many others could still be hidden within the Vatican's secret archives? And why does the Church insist on maintaining control over these texts? The answer may lie in the impact these revelations would have on Christianity. Imagine the shock it would be to discover that certain dogmas were created not by divine inspiration, but by political decisions made centuries ago. That many of the rules followed by the faithful were established not for the salvation of souls, but to ensure power and influence over the masses. Over the years, there have been reports of documents being leaked from these secret archives. Some information suggests that the Church has always had access to knowledge that could change the course of humanity. There are manuscripts that talk about a possible connection between religion and highly advanced ancient civilizations. There are records of correspondence between popes and scientists discussing inexplicable phenomena that have been deliberately ignored by the academic community. There are texts that mention sacred artifacts hidden in remote locations around the world, objects that would have been used by biblical figures and that could contain powers beyond human understanding. If these stories are true, why does the Vatican try so hard to ensure they are never confirmed? The truth is that there is a very fine line between faith and control. What would happen if people discovered that they had much greater spiritual power than they imagined, who don't need intermediaries to connect to the divine, that certain teachings were deliberately suppressed so that the few would continue to control the beliefs of the many? The liberation of knowledge has always been a threat to those who wish to keep its influence intact. And perhaps that is exactly why these documents remain hidden, away from the public eye. If one day these secrets come to light, will the world be the same? Will people's faith remain unshakable, or will many begin to question everything they have believed their entire lives? The answers may be right in front of us, hidden within these impenetrable libraries, waiting to be discovered. And if there's one thing history has taught us, it's that no truth can be hidden forever. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe these documents should be revealed? Do you think the Vatican hides secrets that could change everything we know about the Christian faith? Comment below. The truth needs to be revealed. And share this video with more people who need to know this information. Over the centuries, whenever a supposed forbidden document came to light or a new discovery threatened the Church's official narrative, the Vatican remained silent or offered vague responses, carefully constructed to avoid major repercussions. When asked about the secret archives, the Church usually claims that they contain only administrative records, papal correspondence, and historical documents with no relevance to the Christian faith. But if that were really the truth, why is access to these files so restricted? Why are only a few people in the world allowed to consult these records, and even then under supervision? If there is nothing to hide, why so many efforts to keep these texts away from public knowledge? This posture of mystery and secrecy only fuels suspicions even more. Whenever an ancient manuscript is discovered that calls into question the official version of events, the Church quickly discredits its authenticity, classifying it as a document with no historical or theological value. It was like this with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was like this with the Gospel of Judas. And it was like this with several other apocryphal texts that contradict the traditional narrative. But are all these discoveries really irrelevant? Or do they represent a threat to the consolidated power of the Church over the centuries? One of the most emblematic cases of alleged concealment of information by the Vatican involves the famous Third Secret of Fatima. For years, it was speculated that the Church never revealed the true content of the third message supposedly delivered by the Virgin Mary to 3 children in Portugal in 1917. When they finally released a version of the secret, many believed that it was a manipulation or a carefully edited summary, as the real content could bring shocking revelations about the future of humanity, or even about the role of the Church itself in the prophesied events. Some say the real secret involves a crisis in global faith, the weakening of the Church, and a possible collapse of its power structures. Another case that raised numerous suspicions was the Vatican's involvement with the Dead Sea Scrolls. These texts, discovered in the late 1940s, contain valuable information about the beginnings of Christianity and Judaism. However, the way they were studied and disseminated was surrounded by mystery. For decades, a limited team of scholars had exclusive access to the texts. and any attempts by independent researchers to analyze them were heavily suppressed. Many believe that some of the manuscripts could contain passages that challenged church doctrine, and that their release was therefore controlled. After all, if these documents only complemented what we already know, why prevent them from being studied by any specialist? The truth is that the Vatican has always had absolute control over which documents can be released and which must remain hidden. The Vatican's secret library is one of the most protected places in the world, and not just because of its historical importance, but because of what may be hidden inside it. There are accounts of texts that mention the true history of the early years of Christianity, records of ancient councils where crucial decisions were made about which teachings should be preserved and which should be suppressed. Is there something in these documents that could shake the foundations of the Christian faith as we know it? Another issue that many researchers raise is the fact that the Church has an immense amount of relics and historical artifacts whose origins have never been fully clarified. There are records that the Vatican holds documents that could rewrite our view of biblical figures, and even the relationship between the Church and ancient civilizations. There are indications that many of these artifacts could contain information that challenges the traditional narrative, revealing a much more complex past than we have been taught. And when we look at history, we see that whenever something came up that questioned the power of the Church, the response was the same: censorship and silence. During the Middle Ages, many texts considered heretical were simply destroyed. Works by philosophers and scientists that contradicted church doctrine were burned, and their authors persecuted. The Inquisition was one of the darkest periods of this attempt at absolute control of knowledge. People who dared to think differently were accused of blasphemy and condemned, and books that presented alternative views on spirituality were banned. Even in more modern times, there are examples of suppression of information that could impact faith. During the 20th century, several documents that questioned the origin of certain dogmas were simply ignored by the Church. Archaeological discoveries that suggested alternative versions of history were discredited before they were even studied in depth. And whenever a scholar suggests that there is something deeper behind the Vatican's secrets, attempts to disqualify him quickly emerge. If the Church truly believes these documents are unimportant, why the effort to keep them from the public? Could revealing this information weaken the institution? Or is there something in these archives that could finally clarify questions that humanity has been asking for centuries? Perhaps the biggest question of all is, what don't we know yet? If so much is being hidden, how much information could be lost within these sacred walls? Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you think the Vatican is hiding something? Do you believe these documents should be revealed to the public? Comment below. We want the truth, to show that this search for answers cannot be stopped. Many researchers, historians, and investigative journalists have spent decades trying to understand what is really hidden inside the Vatican's secret archives. Some gained limited access to certain documents, while others were completely blocked, without any plausible justification. Among these scholars, there are those who claim that the Church hides secrets that could forever change the way we understand Christianity and the history of humanity itself. One of the best-known names when it comes to Vatican secrets is journalist and writer David Yallop. In your book, In the Name of God, he suggests there is a conspiracy involving the death of Pope John Paul I, who ruled for just 33 days before dying mysteriously. According to Yallop, the Pope had discovered dark secrets within the Vatican, including corruption schemes and possible links between the Church and organizations that should not have influence within the Holy See. This story has never been completely clarified, and to this day doubts remain about what really happened in the corridors of power in the Vatican at that time. Another scholar who brings shocking revelations about the Church is the Italian historian Luigi Cascioli. He was one of the fiercest critics of the official version of biblical events and even sued the Catholic Church, claiming that it hides evidence that the story of Jesus had been altered over the centuries. For Cascioli, there are documents within the Vatican that, if revealed, would show that many of the dogmas we follow today were built on convenient interpretations, and that the true message of the first Christians was completely erased. Theologian Michael Begant, co-author of the book The Holy Grail and the Sacred Lineage, also made accusations that the Vatican keeps priceless secrets about the life of Jesus. According to their research, Documents hidden in the Vatican's secret library could prove that Christ had descendants, and that this information was carefully suppressed throughout history to keep the Church's official narrative intact. This idea was strongly rejected by the Vatican, but the lack of transparency and secrecy surrounding ancient documents raise even more suspicions. Of course, much of this information is labeled conspiracy theories, and the Vatican always tries to discredit any study that goes against its doctrines. But here's the most important detail. Why doesn't the Church completely open its archives and allow scholars to freely analyze these documents? If there is nothing to hide, why are there so many restrictions on accessing information that, in theory, should belong to humanity and not just a small elite within the Holy See? There are also reports from people who worked inside the Vatican and who claim to have seen documents that could completely change history. A former archivist, who preferred to remain anonymous, revealed in an interview that there are detailed records of events that contradict the official version of the Bible. Among these documents would be letters from historical figures discussing necessary misrepresentations in sacred texts, as well as records of apparitions and supernatural phenomena that were kept secret. This information has never been officially confirmed, but the simple fact that reports like this exist is enough to make anyone question what is really being hidden. Another point that raises even more doubts is the archaeological evidence that has never been completely disclosed. There are those who believe that the Vatican possesses ancient texts that could shed new light on the events described in the Bible. Some scholars suggest that manuscripts found in the Middle East, especially those that have not been widely studied, could contain excerpts from alternative gospels or information that would reveal that the Christian narrative was shaped to serve specific interests. There are also reports that the Church has documents detailing contact with unknown entities, hidden prophecy, and even records of lost civilization. In different cultures around the world we find mentions of divine figures who brought knowledge to humanity. But what if these records had been edited or hidden so that only one version of the story prevailed? The Vatican has already been accused of hiding texts that speak of connections between the religion and what many would call celestial beings or fallen angels. There are documents that mention sacred artifacts that have never been revealed to the public and that supposedly contain deep secrets about the true origin of humanity. Even in modern times, whenever new discoveries emerge that challenge official history, the Church seems to move quickly to discredit them. How many times have we heard about ancient documents found in remote locations, but which were then classified as irrelevant by experts linked to the Church? How many ancient texts have mysteriously disappeared before being fully analyzed? Why did some researchers have their careers destroyed after they began to question established truths? The question remains, how long will this continue? If the truth really is in the Vatican archive, will we ever have access? How many secrets are still buried beneath layers and mystery? If history teaches us anything, that no truth. Now I want to know, do you believe that the Vatican really hides to change? Comment below. The truth needs. Search for answers cannot be ignored. If there is one thing that could completely shake the foundations of Christianity, it is the possibility that the identity of Jesus Christ has been altered over the centuries, shaped to suit political and religious interests. And this is not just any theory, but a question that has been raised by scholars for a long time. Among the hidden documents that could contain these answers are the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Book of Enoch, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, texts that present narratives very different from those we know through the traditional Bible. If these alternative versions of history were revealed, how would it impact the faith of millions of people? The Gospel of Judas, for example, presents Judas Iscariot not as a traitor, but as Jesus' most faithful disciple, one who received profound knowledge and was entrusted with a sacred role, delivering Jesus so that his destiny could be fulfilled. According to this gospel, Judas did not act out of greed or betrayal, but rather following the instructions of Christ himself. If this version were accepted, Christianity would have been built on a great injustice against the one who was, in reality, chosen to carry out the divine plan. But why does the Church reject this version? Why was this gospel classified as heretical and erased from history? What might happen if people began to question the basis of the Christian narrative that has been taught for centuries? Another document that brings a completely different perspective on history is the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which suggests that Mary was not just a follower of Jesus, but one of his most important disciples, perhaps even the main one. This gospel reveals that Mary Magdalene had spiritual knowledge that the other disciples did not have, and that Jesus shared teachings with her that were not accessible to others. If this is true, it means that there was a major distortion in the way Christianity was structured, excluding the female presence from religious leadership. The Church has always reinforced the idea that Mary Magdalene was just a repentant sinner, but has never explained why she appears so often alongside Jesus in ancient texts. Could it be possible that its true importance was deliberately erased so that the power of the Church was centered solely on men? And then we come to one of the most enigmatic documents ever discovered, the Book of Enoch. This ancient manuscript, which was removed from the Bible, describes a reality that could completely change humanity's view of the spiritual world. He talks about the Watchers, fallen angels who came to earth and taught forbidden knowledge to humans. Among these teachings would be mastery over nature, astrology, advanced medicine, and even techniques that could expand human consciousness. If this book was removed from the scriptures, it means that there was a conscious decision to prevent people from having access to this knowledge. But why? What would be the real reason to prevent humanity from knowing more about its own origin and what these fallen angels really represented? Dead Sea Scrolls are another great mystery. Discovered in caves near the Dead Sea, these texts reveal details about religious groups that lived in Jesus' time and who had a different vision from that established by the Church. Some of these manuscripts talk about a warrior Messiah. Others bring mystical teachings that seem to have been completely excluded from Christianity. The question that arises is, were these texts ignored because they were not relevant or because they contained information that the Church preferred to hide? What else could be hidden in the Vatican's secret archives that has not yet come to light? The idea that there are hidden spiritual knowledge within the Church, it is not something new. Since the first centuries of Christianity, there have been reports of texts and practices that were banned because they were considered dangerous. Some believe that the Vatican has detailed records on advanced forms of meditation that could lead to heightened states of consciousness, providing a direct connection with the divine without the need for the intermediary. If this is true, it means that there is a deeper form of spirituality that was deliberately kept secret so that religious power. There are also rumors that the Vatican has documents that talk about hidden prophecies, predictions that were never revealed to the public because they could cause panic or questions about the future of humanity. Some of these prophecies would be linked to the Church itself, predicting a moment of great transformation, a possible collapse of its power structures, and the emergence of a new era of spiritual knowledge. If these texts really exist, why were they kept from public knowledge? Is there something in them that would indicate an inevitable change to religion as we know it? The Church has always had complete control over what information could be released and what should be buried in oblivion. For centuries, it decided what was considered sacred and what should be banned. But what if the true essence of Christianity lay not only in the Gospels we know, but also in these forbidden documents that have been hidden for so long? What if this information revealed that spirituality is much deeper than we have been led to believe? What would happen if all these texts came to light? How would the world react if we discovered that the history of the Christian faith had been carefully edited? How would people deal with the revelation that certain teachings were deliberately erased to maintain the Church's power structure? If the truth is hidden within the Vatican's secret archives, will we ever have access to it? Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that the Vatican hides information that could completely change our view of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and true Christianity? Do you think these banned texts should be revealed to the public? Comment below. We want the truth, to show that this search for answers cannot be interrupted. In recent years, more and more rumors and discoveries have been circulating about the secrets hidden within the Vatican. As technology advances and access to information becomes more decentralized, ancient documents, accounts from former Church officials, and even archaeological research are beginning to raise questions that were previously completely ignored or classified as heresy. What was once just speculation has now become a field of serious research. And the big question everyone asks is, what is the Vatican hiding that has not yet been revealed? Recently, Several researchers have been trying to access the Vatican's secret archives, a place that houses more than 85 kilometers of shelves filled with ancient manuscripts, forbidden texts, and correspondence dating back centuries. These archives are highly restricted, and only a select group of scholars are allowed to access them under extremely strict conditions. But what really arouses the curiosity of many is the fact that some documents are classified as confidential indefinitely. That is, they can never be seen by the public. What could be in these records that requires this level of protection? In 2019, Pope Francis authorized the opening of part of the archives related to the pontificate of Pope Pius XIV, who governed the Church during the Second World War. However, many believe that this was just a strategy to give the impression of transparency, as the most controversial documents, those that talk about forbidden texts, hidden prophecies, and possible truths that could change Christianity, remain inaccessible. Some researchers report that when requesting access to certain documents, they receive evasive responses or are simply ignored. There are reports of scholars who spent years trying to obtain permission to examine certain manuscripts and were constantly blocked without any convincing explanation. One of the most mysterious cases involves documents that supposedly detail inexplicable and possibly supernatural events recorded throughout the history of the Church. There are rumors that there are records of appearances of unknown entities, prophetic messages that were never released, and even documents that suggest contact with something that goes beyond human understanding. Some believe that the Vatican has information about phenomena that could completely alter the way we understand spirituality and the relationship between the divine and humanity. But why were these documents never made public? Another recent discovery that caught the attention of the academic community was the revelation that the Vatican has in its archives manuscripts about ancient civilizations and spiritual knowledge that have been suppressed over the centuries. Among them, texts that talk about mystical teachings that would have been passed on by ancient people and that could contain hidden truths about human existence. There are indications that the Vatican keeps information about the true origins of humanity, connections to lost civilizations, and even records of events that contradict the traditional historical narrative. Could it be that within these highly protected libraries there is proof that our history has been manipulated? One of the most intriguing documents supposedly kept in the Vatican is an unknown gospel that describes events in the life of Jesus that have never been officially reported. This text, which was never made public, could contain revelations about Christ's lost years, a period of his life about which almost nothing is known. Many theories suggest that Jesus may have traveled to distant locations, absorbing spiritual knowledge that was not included in the canonical Gospels. If a document like this really exists, its contents could completely change the view of Christianity we know today. In recent years, scholars have also investigated the possibility that the Vatican possesses documents about celestial phenomena and prophecies that were never disclosed. Some of these prophecies could be directly related to events that have yet to happen and that were considered too dangerous to be revealed to the public. There are those who say that within the secret files there are predictions about global catastrophes, shifts in the balance of faith, and even the arrival of a new era of spirituality that would challenge the dominance of the Church. Another point that generates great debate among scholars is the existence of prohibited texts that talk about Mary Magdalene and her true role in early Christianity. New discoveries suggest that Mary Magdalene's story may have been deliberately altered to erase her importance within the nascent Church. Some texts indicate that she was not just a follower of Jesus, but a spiritual leader, someone who received special teachings and who played a fundamental role in the spread of Christianity. If these documents are true, it means that the role of women in the Church has been purposely reduced over the centuries to reinforce a predominantly male power structure. And what about archaeological research that seems to confirm the existence of lost texts? In recent years, archaeologists have discovered fragments of manuscripts that mention teachings of Jesus that are not in the Bible, as well as references to spiritual secrets that would have been shared only with a select group of disciples. These discoveries only reinforce the idea that there is much more about Christianity that we have not yet been told. If this evidence keeps coming out, Isn't it time for the Vatican to finally open its archives and let the world know the truth? With so many researchers trying to access these documents and being blocked, the question remains, what exactly does the Vatican fear will be discovered? If there is nothing to hide, why not release these texts for public analysis? Could it be that within these hidden libraries, there is something that could completely change our view of faith, history, and the purpose of humanity? If something is about to be revealed, are we prepared to deal with the truth? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe there are secret documents in the Vatican that could change our understanding of Christian history and faith? Comment below. We need the truth to show that this mystery cannot remain hidden. If this information is true, what does it mean for your faith? What if everything we know about the history of Christianity has been carefully edited over the centuries to fit a convenient narrative? What if the Vatican, with its locked archives and impenetrable secrets, is the key to unlocking the truth that has been hidden from us? The possibility that there are forbidden documents, forgotten manuscripts, and records that would completely alter our view of spirituality and humanity cannot be ignored. But the big question is, are we prepared to deal with these revelations? Imagine for a moment that one of these hidden texts is finally revealed to the public, and its content contradicts everything that has been taught to date. Imagine that the true role of biblical figures like Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and the apostles is completely different from what we have been taught. How would this impact the faith of millions of people? Would the structure of the Church be able to sustain its authority if part of its historical basis were questioned? These questions are disturbing, but each new discovery leads us to believe that something significant is being hidden. What if we are closer to the truth than ever before? For centuries, humanity has relied on faith to understand the purpose of existence and the connection with the divine. But what happens when we discover that this faith has been shaped, modified, and manipulated? During the Council of Nicaea, for example, changes were made to sacred texts that determined which Gospels would be accepted and which would be banned. What few know is that during the same period, other documents were excluded because they presented alternative versions of the story of Christ and his teachings. Why were these texts considered dangerous? Did they contain truths that could call into question the Church's dominance over the faithful? And it doesn't stop there. Some scholars suggest that the Vatican's secret archives hide evidence that Christianity as we know it was influenced by older cultures, and that many of the concepts we consider unique to that faith existed in earlier civilizations. There are indications that some doctrines were adapted from Egyptian, Babylonian, and even Eastern religions. This would explain why certain spiritual teachings that are today considered heretical were already part of the knowledge of civilizations long before the emergence of Christianity. If these records really exist and are kept inside the Vatican, it means that the story we have been told is just one part of something much bigger. Now imagine that within these files there are documents that confirm the existence of hidden prophecies, predictions about the future of humanity that have never been made public. What if there are records about events that have yet to happen, but which have been deliberately suppressed to avoid panic or to maintain control over the masses? There are those who believe that some of these prophecies speak of the collapse of the Church itself, a radical shift in the balance of global faith, and even the return of a spiritual truth that has been lost over the centuries. If this information comes to light, would the current religious structure be able to survive? But there is something even more intriguing. Some researchers believe that the Vatican may be hiding records that tell of inexplicable phenomena, events that defy logic and human understanding, documents that mention appearances of mysterious entities, encounters with beings that do not fit into traditional explanations of faith. Could the Vatican have concrete evidence about the existence of something much greater than we have been taught? What if this is the reason why certain texts were banned and kept from the public eye? If all this is true, what will be the next step? How long will these secrets remain hidden? And most importantly, if we had access to all this information, how would it change our way of seeing faith and the history of humanity? Would we have a new understanding of the divine? Would we understand that we were led to believe in something incomplete, fragmented, so that certain institutions maintained control? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe we are closer to the truth than ever before? Do you think the Vatican holds secrets that if revealed, would completely change our view of faith? Comment below. We need the truth to show that this search for answers cannot be stopped. If these secrets are real, if these documents really are hidden within the Vatican's secret archives, then we are facing a truth that could change everything. Think about it. Why does the Church keep these texts locked away? If they don't matter, why don't they make them public? Why are scholars who try to access them prevented from continuing their research? And most disturbingly, why do those who challenge the Vatican and question this information end up being silenced? There is something much bigger behind this. What is hidden within these sacred walls may be the key to understanding the true history of humanity. What if these documents reveal that our origins have been distorted? What if there is evidence that early Christians had much deeper spiritual knowledge than we have been taught? What would happen if we discovered that many of the dogmas imposed by the Church were created not by divine inspiration, but by political decisions to maintain control over the masses? Throughout history, secrets have been kept not to protect people, but to protect those who hold power. Whenever new discoveries threatened the official version of history, the Church moved quickly to discredit, hide, or reinterpret these findings. It was like that with the apocryphal Gospels. It was like that with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was like that with the Book of Enoch. Texts that could shed new light on Jesus' teachings were banned, discarded, and classified as dangerous. But dangerous for whom? For faith, or for the institution that benefited from faith's control? And now think about something even deeper. Are there texts that have been completely erased from history? Documents that were never made public? Writings that were deliberately destroyed to ensure that no one ever knew of their existence? If we know that ancient manuscripts were removed from the Bible and that others were hidden, how many more could have simply been eliminated before the world even knew of their importance? If these secrets came to light, what would happen to the Christian faith? Would millions of people continue to believe in the same dogmas, or would they begin to question everything they were taught? Would the structure of the Church, which for centuries maintained control over this information, be able to sustain itself in the face of a truth completely different from the one presented to us? And here's another crucial point. What could be about to be revealed? In recent years, with the advancement of technology, accessing old documents is becoming easier and easier. Some researchers are managing to digitize manuscripts that were previously inaccessible, and the information that is emerging is surprising. There are indications that prohibited texts contain detailed descriptions of events that were omitted from official Church history. There are documents that speak of contacts with spiritual entities, mystical experiences, that were interpreted as miracles, and even records that indicate the existence of hidden knowledge that could completely change the way we see the divine. If this information is true, we are about to enter a new moment in history, a period in which ancient secrets will finally be revealed. But the big question is, will the Vatican allow this to happen? The Church is aware that the information age is making it increasingly difficult to keep these secrets buried. But how far will they go to, prevent this truth from coming to light? And you, what do you think? Do you believe these documents should be revealed? If yes, comment below. We want the truth to show that this mystery needs to be solved. We cannot allow such important secrets to remain hidden. And if you found all this impressive, wait until you see what has been found about the forbidden texts of the Bible. What we've revealed so far is just the beginning. I know that you felt the voice of God in this video. If something, inside you awakened and made you reflect on these revelations, then this was not by chance. Nothing happens without a purpose. If this message touched your heart, subscribe to the channel now and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Together, we will continue to investigate the truth that has been hidden from humanity for centuries. I know you've come this far. I want to ask you something special. Comment below. The truth will set me free, to show that we are together in this search for knowledge. Let's create a chain of people who no longer accept living in ignorance, who want to understand what has been hidden, and who are ready to see beyond what we have been taught. Now, before you leave your like, because it helps us reach more people who also need to hear this message. And don't stop here. The next video is already on screen, and in it we will reveal even more shocking secrets. Click now and continue this journey in search of the truth.